mental health, setting our youth up for success. Before we begin our regular webinar, we thought it was really important to have a little bit of a conversation about anxiety and COVID-19. As we're all practicing physical and social isolation, we might be spending a lot of times with youth, probably in our own homes, not just in our workplaces. And the webinar that we're going to have today is talking about the mental health of our youth, and we felt it was really important to talk about some of the anxiety that our youth may be feeling from COVID-19. So one of the things that the experts are suggesting is to make sure that the facts that our teens are reading and hearing are from credible sources. You as an adult in their life can help them determine what the credible sources are. If they're getting their information from places that are not credible, this can be leading to increased anxiety. So start watching the teens around you, the young workers around you. Ask them, do they have fears, and what are those fears? If they tell you they don't have fears, but you start to see changes in behavior, that is a clue to you that there may be some anxiety involved. Just as ourselves, limiting media coverage is crucial at this time. We are actually bombarded by information about COVID-19. And as an adult, I can tell you that my anxiety levels some days are higher than I would like them to be. So imagine how our youth are looking at this. Make sure to be taking care of yourself. If you're the adult in the situation with young workers at work or young people at home, if we have anxiety, the young people around us will be able to tell. And when we're trying to tell them that everything is going to be okay, but yet we're anxious ourselves, they're really not going to believe it. So make sure that we're encouraging interaction with their friends. Make sure that they're doing it via FaceTime, not actually physically close together. And encourage them to help others when they can. We know that when we're helping others, we're increasing our own good, strong mental health, and that's a positive thing to do. The one caveat that I'll share with you is if you have a young person who comes to you and says they're suffering from anxiety around COVID-19, the worst thing we can do is dismiss it. So I encourage you, listen to them actively. Listen to them with your heart, your eyes, and your ears. And together, try to find a way to reduce the anxiety that our youth and ourselves are feeling during COVID-19. Actually, doing some online education is probably a great way to spend some of your time during your physical or social isolation. So we know that as we move forward, the world is going to be a very different place. And we're trying to share with you different things to ensure that we can get through this together. When we think about young people, sometimes we don't understand just their breadth of information and how they process information and just how brilliant they are. Each year, Workplace Safety North does an art project, and this is a picture from a grade 10 student. And when we asked them what their artwork depict, this is what they said. This artwork represents what's going on inside of his head. It shines a light on the stresses of the workplace and what work can do to his mental health. On the inside, this man is struggling. Work has overtaken his life, and his head can't stop spinning with the to-do lists and the piles of papers that just keep stacking higher and will continue. So this is from a grade 10 student who certainly understands about mental health. And if we can relate some of this information to the COVID-19, we can see that the stresses of COVID-19 can take over our mental health. Let's not let that happen. Here's a link to some music. And the researchers that put the soundtrack together suggest that it can reduce anxiety by 65%. Now, this won't work for everyone. I have a coworker who listened to it. She said it gave her a headache and she preferred to listen to Def Leppard. So we all have different choices in music, but find a music that helps you reduce your anxiety and listen to it as much as you can. Who are we? Well, we are Workplace Safety North. We're a health and safety organization based in Northern Ontario. Our vision is every worker home safe, and this includes mental health. We live, we work, and we play in the North, and our commitment to you is to bring you information that you need when you need it. We believe safety conversations should be as natural as this picture. And when we talk about mental health and specifically our youth, we really truly believe that they have to be natural, comfortable, and as open as the picture that you see here. Let the conversations be like this picture: natural, comforting, inviting, and as wonderful as Dexter, the WSM dog. So who am I, you might be wondering? My name is Angele Poitras. I'm a certified psychological health and safety advisor at Workplace Safety North. I've been involved with health and safety going on 20 years. I'm a mother of 5. I'm a grandmother of 6. I own a very naughty dog, and I'm thrilled to work with the people that I do at Workplace Safety North. And you can see from the picture in the top right-hand corner, we do serious work, but we do it with a smile on our face. And do you know why? Because we believe that humor and getting along with our coworkers and feeling safe and comfortable in our workplaces is the key to some of our good mental health. So I'm thrilled to be here with you today, and I'd like to say thank you. Congratulations for joining us today. This could be your first step in a journey to introduce mental health to your workplace. By focusing on our youth, you're making an investment in the future. Before we begin the actual webinar, I think it's important to explain to you 3 words that have different meanings. Often we'll hear mental health, mental illness, and mental harm used interchangeably. Mental health and mental illness are increasingly being used as if they mean the same thing, but they do not. Everyone has mental health just like everyone has physical health. As the World Health Organization famously says, there is no health without mental health. In the course of a lifetime, not all people will experience a mental illness, but most of us will struggle or have a challenge with their mental well-being. And that's when we're talking about physical health. Just like at times in our life, we're going to have challenges with our physical well-being. When we talk about mental health, we're talking about our mental well-being, our emotions, our thoughts and our feelings, our ability to solve problems and overcome difficulties, our social connections, and our understanding of the world around us. A mental illness is an illness that affects the way people think, feel, behave, or interact with others. There are many different mental illnesses, and they have different symptoms that impact people's lives in different ways. Health isn't like an on-off switch. There are different degrees of health, and we can move around the continuum. So just because somebody has a mental illness doesn't necessarily mean they have poor mental health. And when we talk about the realm of mental harm specific to workplaces, we're talking about how our workplaces can make us ill or how our colleagues can make us ill. And that's about the mental harm in regards to workplaces. So we thought we'd start with a little bit of true and false just to see how little we know or how much we know about mental health. So a person who has one or both parents with mental illness is more likely to develop mental illness themselves. True or false? True. Mental illness can be hereditary. For example, the rate of schizophrenia in the general population is 1%. This rate rises to 8% if one parent has a disorder, and to 37 to 46% if both parents have it. Mental illness tends to begin during adolescence. True or false? True. The first episode of a mental illness often occurs between the ages of 15 and 30 years old. That's why it is so very critical that we have early intervention, as we know it is one of the most important factors related to recovery from mental illness. Sadly, 28,000 children and youth are on waiting lists for mental health services. And you may not be aware of this, but a quarter of Ontario parents, that's us, that's the other people who work in your workplace as employers, have missed work to care for a child with anxiety. So a quarter of parents will miss work to care for a child with anxiety. Young people today experience more anxiety and mental health concerns than ever before. In 2017, the Ministry of Labor found that those between the ages of 16 and 25 were 4 times more likely than the general population to experience anxiety and mental health concerns. And in 2017, the Pediatric Academy Society found that the admittance of our young people to hospital for thoughts of self-harm and or suicide have doubled in the past decade and seem to be continuing to trend upward. People with mental illness never get better. True or false? Absolutely false. With the right kind of help, many people with a mental illness do recover and go on to lead healthy and productive and satisfying lives. While the illness may not go away, the symptoms associated with it can be controlled, and this allows us to regain normal functioning. Perhaps if you take only one thing away from today's webinar, may it be this: 80% of us will feel better if we go and seek help. 80% of us. So I challenge you, if there is a youth in your workplace, a young worker, or anyone else for that matter, who you feel should seek help, please encourage them to do so. How can we not? 80% of them will feel better. So what stops us from going to get help? Well, our youth tell us, actually 63% of them will tell us, it is the stigma attached around mental health that stops them from seeking help. Mental illness can be cured with willpower. False. Mental illness is associated with the chemical imbalances in the brain and requires a comprehensive treatment plan. Although we can help our mental illnesses if we practice good mental health. 9/11. I want you to close your eyes, and I'm going to ask you 3 questions. Where are you? What are you doing? And what happened? Where are you? What are you doing? And what happened? Do you have a vivid picture in your mind? Most of us will. Most of us are probably feeling a little bit of anxiety just thinking about it. I remember exactly where I was, what car I was driving, what color my suit was, who I was with. It is as vivid as it happened yesterday. Now, you might be wondering why I've asked you to remember this very traumatic day. And there is a reason. A while ago, I asked my youngest daughter about why there is so much anxiety in our youth. And the response was, I have 9/11 every day on social media. I see young children that have drowned trying to escape war-torn countries. I see villages that are bombed and people running for their lives. I hear people being killed while at a movie. The world is different, Mom. And Lloyd Robertson no longer has to interrupt regular programming to bring us the news. It's instant. The iGen youth have grown up with a smartphone in their hand, and they spend an average of 6 days on it. So if we can just for a moment walk a mile in someone else's shoes, we see the anxiety in the people around us around COVID-11. We ourselves remember September 11th. Let's be kind to the youth who work with us each and every day. And if we see that they have some anxiety, let's have the open and kind conversations with them. So if you grab your phone and you look at the headlines, chances are most of it will be very negative. Most of it will be centered around the coronavirus. Today, it's the Prince Charles, he has the coronavirus, the number of cases increasing, the deaths in Italy, it just goes on and on and on. Remember we talked about earlier about limiting our social media and our news? This certainly illustrates the reason why. Do you remember September 11th, 2001? We were glued to our television sets, and I, for one, can share with you that just increased my anxiety. It certainly didn't make me feel any better. So we have online versus real life. Now, if you look at the photo in the top right with the three beaming children holding up joy, as a mother of five, I can bet you that that did not happen in one take. The picture at the bottom with the crying children more aptly represents what it's like to get a family picture to be taken. Would you agree? But what gets posted on social media? Those three glorious, wonderful children that anybody would be pleased to have. But as parents, we know it's the three children at the bottom right that depicts our each and every day. When our youth are continually bombarded by the happy stories, by the joyous moments, they begin to think to themselves, my life sucks when compared to everybody else. What am I doing wrong? So there was a Twitter thread not long ago by a blogger called Tracy Clayton, and she's the host of BuzzFeed's podcast called Another Round. So she had asked her followers if they would be comfortable sharing a photo that they had posted on social media, one that showed them looking very happy, but had actually been taken during a time of personal strife. She said within minutes, the tweet blew up. And she said people started responding and showing pictures of themselves posing happily and very confidently for the camera. But the captions underneath really told the story. It wasn't the picture. One said, this is me posing happily, but I'd really just had an anxiety attack. Another one said, yeah, I posted this. I looked really happy, but really I was worried about a family member's health because I knew they were going to die. And another young poster said this. Yeah, I posted this picture of myself really, really happy, but it was taken just moments after I was crying in my therapist's office about my anxiety. So are our youth looking at a real world or one in which they feel they have to be liked? So the ones I particularly enjoy on here are the Instagram versus reality. Uh, they make me laugh and they should make you laugh too. But what happens when we post the Instagram picture and our youth see that and they're posting it? They're waiting for the like buttons. They're waiting for the number of likes. And when they don't get the likes, they're wondering what is wrong. It gets them anxious, and then the negative thoughts start to creep in. People are so in tune to the like button that Instagram has actually considered removing it. So think about how you post pics. Are you like me? I take a picture and I post it, to which my daughter say, oh, you really should have done that shot a few more times, not the best angle. Or do you 10 or 15 shots to get that perfect shot, and then that's what you choose to post online? Maybe ask the youth in your life, what do they post? And how does it make them feel when they see the online versus real life? Anxiety and depression are the two illnesses facing our teens. Sure, anxiety's always been around, but what triggers it has grown. Long gone are the days that our anxiety was caused by being chased by a dinosaur. So just think about that for a moment. Think about the world that they live in. So what is triggering their anxiety and their depression? Think about their world. Social media, doomsday scenes, the school testing that stresses the need to succeed, the violence in their schools. They've grown up being told, you're the first generation that won't do as well as your parents. That's pretty bleak. Conversation. They have not been taught how to have conversations. Remember, they've grown up with the iPhone in their hand. The iPhone was actually designed for actual conversations, but we know it isn't. It's about data and text, right? They see more violence in their world. their games and their movies. They've witnessed the breakdown of the family unit. They're talking and struggling through gender identification. They have easy access to drugs, and the list goes on and on. Think about what creates anxiety for you. Chances are it might be something that's creating anxiety for the young people around you. Is it logical that as an employer, you will see the same in your young employees? This is the American College Health Association, and they've been studying students and their rate of anxiety. And you will note it's going up and it's continuing to grow up. If I was to ask you, can you name at least one person in your life with anxiety? One person in your life with depression? I'm fairly certain that you could. Can you name two or more? Can you name somebody you work with? Or can you name a youth in your life who suffers from anxiety and depression? Think about, would you want to be a young person today? I know I could. So we started asking UCLA college freshmen about if they felt overwhelmed by what they had to do. And I mean, just look at the charts. 2018, 2019 has gone higher, 2020 has gone higher. When I looked at this chart, the very first thing I thought about was the Queen and David Bowie song called Under Pressure. For those of you familiar, and I hope it's running through your mind right now and that you're going to sing it for the rest of the day, one of the lyrics that jumped out at me was this: it's the terror of knowing what this world is about, watching some good friends screaming, let me out. Afraid tomorrow takes me higher, pressure on people. Insanity laughs under pressure, we're cracking. Can't we give ourselves one more chance? And as an employer watching this, you are giving one more chance to the youth in your workplace, and Workplace Safety North applauds you for that. This is Amy Morin, and when we looked at some research to share with you, we chose her information because it was easily understood and we thought it was very practical. Now, if we're going to be able to help our youth in our workplaces, we have to understand the why. Why is there more anxiety today? And this is where Amy Morin is going to come in. And she has suggested that it's a widespread issue, and it's the most common reason people come to her. So I think it's important that we understand the meaning of anxiety before we move forward. And anxiety helps us to detect and avoid potentially dangerous situations. Remember the flight or flight syndrome? But chronic anxiety is generally not something that goes away on its own. And anxiety that is chronic can change your brain. It alters our thought patterns and makes us more prone to negative thinking, catastrophic thinking, oversensitivity to health and physical sensations, and much more. The longer you live with anxiety, the more anxiety may consume your thoughts. So what happens to us when we're in a constant state of anxiety and we stay there? We can have weight loss or gain, headaches, dizziness, depression, illness, disease, stomach aches, nausea. We're much more open to infection and diseases. So you see, being in a constant state of anxiety is not where we want to be. And we certainly don't want our young people to be there. But it is important to know why their anxiety has increased. So that's where we're going to talk to Ms. Morin's theories. So let me start by prefacing this with a bit of a caveat. If there's any parents who are watching this, I have to warn you, we may feel that this is a bit accusatory and it may cause us to feel anxious. This is what Amy Morin's research is indicated. So like I told you earlier, I'm a mother of 5, and I'm not accusing any of us that are watching this as parents that this is all our fault. So Amy talks about electronic and the unhealthy escape. Remember when we were bored, and I'm 55 years old. So when I was bored and I would say to my mother, I'm bored, her response would be to say, go outside, find some friends. What do we say now? Grab your tablet. If I went to my mother and I said I was sad, She said, go outside and go see your friend Cindy. Now we say, go online and watch a funny movie, watch some funny memes. In the car, when I was bored, my mother would say, you and your little brother play I see, I spy. Now we give them a tablet. So there is a role in our lives for, electronics, certainly. But as parents, perhaps some of us have given too much leeway with them. It is one of the reasons that anxiety tends to be on the increase in some of our young people. So we talked earlier about happiness being all the rage. And if they aren't happy, they definitely think something's wrong with them. But as parents and as older people who influence younger people, we have to let them know that it's okay. You don't have to feel happy all the time. Feeling sadness is okay. Feeling grief, feeling angry, it's all okay. You don't need to be happy all the time. And we have to let them know that it's okay. We can't tell them, oh, yes, you have to be happy each and every single day. So what about the unrealistic praise? When my grandchildren started playing sports and I realized that everyone was getting a trophy, I was a little surprised by that. In my day, it was the winners who got the trophies and the losers got nothing. But I've kind of learned how to recontext that instead of saying winners and losers. I've heard it this way: winners and learners. So, yes, there is a winner and they're going to get the trophy. And we're the learners, and we get to go back and practice and hone our skill, whether it be playing chess, whether it be gymnastics, whether it's hockey or soccer. We have a new opportunity to learn. If we continually tell them that you're the winner, you're the smartest kid in the class, we set them up for failure as they feel they have to live up to it, and it leads to a fear of rejection. And as employers, we know that we are not going to provide them with all of this unrealistic praise. If they haven't done the job like we wanted them to, we are going to take them inside and say, I would appreciate it if you could do it this way. So we have to understand that with the unrealistic praise, we aren't helping them to be set up for success when they go to the workplaces. So the rat race. I remember when I was raising my children, my mom always used to say to me, oh, you do way too much for your kids. You're like a personal assistant to them. I actually felt like a Pez dispenser for cash and rides. Right? We hire tutors, we have them join all the sports. We make sure that socially they're doing the right thing, culturally they're doing the right thing. We pay them to do stuff, we drill them, we praise them, and then we start all over again. And that's all we do. And then what about the no emotional skills? We aren't preparing them for life. Then they tell us that because 60% of people who enter into college, they're not ready. Right? We become helicopter parents and we shelter them and we don't allow for them to develop the emotional skills that they need to succeed, not only in their personal life, but when they come to us in our workplaces. So these are the 5 remaining things that Amy believes have led to so much anxiety today. So what about always being a guide? Parents see themselves as protectors, not guides, but we need to revert back to being guides. We don't want them to have our emotional, physical scars, so we overprotect them and we never give them a chance to solve their own challenges. Think about it for a moment. Your child needs a social security card. What did you do? Did you call for them or did they? What about when there was problems with their phone bill? Who called Bell or Fido or whoever your provider is? Was it you or them? We have to understand that in their workplace, they may not always have a guide and they're going to have to do things on their own. And we're going to have to make sure that they have the skills to be able to do that. What about facing fears? Sometimes, the youth have been pushed not as hard maybe as they could. As parents or the person that is molding their life, they say, oh no, I'm not going to make them do that because it just, it creates too much anxiety. I can share with you a story when my son, the only boy out of 5 children, was a young man. He had a neighbor he didn't particularly like. And I guess he took an opportunity when I wasn't watching him to throw rocks, which looking back must have been big rocks, maybe boulders, to a neighbor's car, and he ended up cracking their windshield. When I told him that he was going to have to go and apologize, he was absolutely horrid. I knew he had a fear of actually talking to people. He had a fear of admitting he was wrong. But I forced him to do it, and I forced him to go by himself. Looking back now, maybe that was a little extreme, but I made him face those fears. And 20 years later, he still remembers that incident. So let's help them create opportunities where they do face their fears, not to have them fall back, but to actually move forward. And we know one of the things with resilience building, which helps with anxiety and our own mental health, is to face our fears. So, what about parenting out of guilt? Amy believes that some of us might have parented out of guilt, and that is the way we parented. So, we haven't really allowed them to do the things maybe they need to do. We've said yes more times than no. And she believes this creates an atmosphere that has increased anxiety. And what we have to let them know is, you know what? It's okay to feel uncomfortable because sometimes we feel uncomfortable. We're not perfect as parents. And earlier in the conversation, we talked about, making sure you're taking care of yourself first. So not enough time to play. When we put our children in organized sports, Amy believes, that's okay. But we also have to ensure that we give them time to play. When we promote unorganized play, it is the kids, and I say kids affectionately, who set the rules and reinforce. They are learning vital skills. These vital skills will help them personally and professionally. So remember when we played outside? We decided what to play. We decided who was going to be on what teams. We decided the rules of the game. We were in control of everything. When we are in organized sports or activities, it's the adults who are setting the rules and the adults who are reinforcing. So make sure to give enough time to play. Family hierarchies are out of whack. This is the last thing that Amy talks about. And she suggests that kids have given us the impression that they want you to be in charge. But deep down, they know they're not capable of decision making. They want parents to be the leaders. Teach them. So now we know what causes some of their anxiety. We may not be able to change any or all of this, but at least it provides us as an employer an understanding and a starting place for us to listen. June 29th, 2007, the first iPhone went on sale, and it put information in the palms of everyone's hand. It changed the world and how we communicate. Do you remember your first phone? I remember my youngest daughter's first phone, and when she was given it, she thought it would be a very cool exercise to call me from the next room. I responded this way: if you call me while we are living in the same house and you are one room away, I will take your phone, throw it in the driveway, and run it over. We are a family, and we still need to communicate verbally with each other. So there's a few things that the phone changed that we may not even think of, and that our youth don't ever think of because it's just their world. Think about it. Everyone's a photographer now. Long gone are the days it was somebody with a really good Kodak camera taking pictures. We would all gather after they had them developed at Blacks. All of a sudden, we're documenting every moment of every day, from our first latte in the morning to the sun setting in the evening, and every moment between. And most of those moments are what we think are just glorious. So those with an iPhone in their hand, think about this, have never needed a flashlight, a map, a calculator, scanner, or clock. Think about that for a moment. So the iPhone is changing how we work even. Think about Uber. They expect industries like that to double in the next 4 years. And here's a little piece of information you might need if you're playing a game, and it's based on information that not a lot of people know or care to know. We no longer buy as much gum as when we were before life of the iPhone. Why? Because we're either buying online, or once we're at the checkouts where those impulse purchases are, we're on our phones, so we're not impulse buying. So the iPhones are all about our growing obsession with media activity. So look at here. This is the millennial. And what we did is we transported him back in the 40s or 50s. So he might be asking himself, where are all the iPhones? Why is everybody dressed up? Why are there so few women? How come there's no multicultural represented? We live in one world together, but in our workplaces, we can come from four different worlds. And it's important to learn to each other, be kind to each other, and to actually think about the anxiety each of us might be facing. Right? When my kids, this is a meme that's been taken off of social media about illustrating the differences between, the 70s and now. And the meme says, so, my children asked me what it was like growing up in the 70s. So this is what I did. I hid their phone. I dismantled the internet. I only allowed 3 channels on a black and white TV. I hid the remote and told them they have to actually get up and turn the knob on the TV to change the channel. And then I said, it's Saturday night, so we're all going to sit on the couch and watch the Montreal Canadiens win the Stanley Cup. And tomorrow at 6, after you've had your bath, you can sit on the couch and watch Walt Disney. So remember, we've all come from different worlds, but now we're all sharing the same one. In our workplaces, this is one of our worlds. This is Sherry Turkle, and she wrote a book called Alone Together, which the title is just a little horrifying and creates a bit of anxiety. Her call to action is unplug before it's too late. She warns that not picking up the phone and calling somebody is not what we should be doing in today's age. We should be picking up the phone and calling those that we love. Don't text them. The illusion of companionship when we're texting is not real. Kids are afraid of the phone now. They never answer the home phone, right? If you've had a home phone, they'll walk right by it and say, it's not for me. So technology is changing the way we communicate, and it raises concerns about genuine, organic social interactions. There was, remember the little fur baby toy that had come out a while ago? Some people were thinking that we're nearing a robotic moment in time, one in which machines will become our companions. Recently, there was a man in the news who wanted to marry his robot doll. People who work in healthcare and were struggling for the personal support workers to care for our elderly are thinking, will it be robots who take care of them? This is a world that our young people may be looking to in the future. They may think that that's their world. And when we talk about unplugging and actually calling people, the messaging isn't getting through. Teens will send thousands of texts per day. And across the world, do you want to guess how many texts we send per minute? Think about it. How many texts do you think we send per minute in the world? You might be surprised to learn, or maybe you're not surprised. 15 million texts a minute. That's a lot of texting going on. I can hardly get through one. So it's not normal to text instead of call. Remember the days when somebody would go on vacation and they'd call you on a Friday and say, wow, do you want to come over to my place Saturday and we're all going to look at my trip? Now we don't do that. While you're on vacation, you are posting the very finest moments of your trip and putting it on social media. It's been strongly suggested that the more we use Facebook, the less happy we are. And there was a young gentleman in Manitoba called Aidan Simard, and he decided to do a 4-week experiment. And he asked 28 youth between the ages of 15 and 17 to go 4 weeks without any social media. At the end of the little experiment, not everybody made it through for the 4 weeks, but those that did told Aidan that they had less stress, they were sleeping better, they had better eating habits, and they were more sociable. And he said the one thing that really stuck in his mind was they all suffered withdrawal symptoms. Aiden has made a commitment to continue studying this, so it would be interesting to follow him and see where he is. He's just now, I believe, in his first year of college, so it'll be a few years before we get his information. And we know it's not normal to text instead of call, and I have an 80-year-old father who does text. But if my brothers and I text him too much, he'll pick up the phone and he'll say, "Could you just call me? Because I miss the sound of your voice." And really, it is that, you know, let's start talking. What can an employer do? Do we stop hiring young workers? That's the easy answer. Besides, people my age have anxiety too. So, as an employer, you have a legal responsibility to have a safe workplace that's free from harassment and bullying. And we believe that includes mental health. So, if a young person or anyone else in your company has the courage to come to you and share that they have a mental health challenge or illness, we suggest that you do this. Thank them for being brave. Remember, we talked about 63% of youth won't seek out help because they're afraid of stigma. If you thank somebody for being brave, you're helping to eradicate stigma. Don't force the person to tell you exactly what it is. If they feel comfortable and want to explain the full situation to you, that's wonderful. If they only want to give you bits and pieces at the beginning, then be thankful that they're even willing to do that. Actively listen. And we know that listening is more difficult than we'd like to think. So have your mind free and clear, be in a good place yourself, and actively listen to what they're going to tell you. And when you're finished listening, ask them, "What do you need from me?" If you yourself can't provide it to them, then look for a mentor in your workplace. Sometimes that young person could very well be your ambassador as you begin your company's mental health journey. Ask them later, "Can you be our ambassador for mental health in the workplace?" So, looking at solutions, if a young person comes to you and says, "When you ask me to close the store alone, it really increases my anxiety." Could a potential solution be that young workers don't close the store? Or you have a new policy that two people need to close? If a young person says to you, "Talking to a lot of people is very, very uncomfortable for me," is a potential solution to have them work in a warehouse rather than up front with people until their anxiety starts to diminish and they become more comfortable in your workplace? You know, as a youth, being in a classroom and having tests really increases my anxiety. The solution, is there an opportunity to do one-on-one training with a mentor? What about a youth says to you, "Sometimes my heart just races and I can hardly breathe." If they are in that actual scenario, I say to them, "You know what? Once we get your breathing normal, I'm going to bring you home so your parents can get you some medical care." These solutions do not have to break the bank. They don't have to change the way you work. They can be slight modifications. So what is it going to look like in our workplaces? How do we create a psychologically safe workplace that can actually lower anxiety for not only our youth, but for everyone who works there? No bullying and no harassment. We know under legislation that we shouldn't allow this to go on. And we know that bullying and harassment does lead to mental harm and will definitely increase anxiety in people. When we talk about no derogatory language in the realm of mental health, we don't go around saying she's a cuckoo bird. And if we hear somebody using words like that, which actually, leads to additional stigma, we have to say to them, "Stop that language. We don't find that acceptable here." And it makes those who have mental health or mental illness feel singled out, and it contributes to stigma. So have you ever talked about mental health to the people in your workplace? Would they feel comfortable in walking up to somebody and saying, "That language is derogatory"? Would they feel comfortable walking up to somebody who's in a staff room or in a lunchroom who's always alone and say to them, do you feel like you're being bullied or harassed? Do we have an open and trustful workplace? Is that the kind of workplace that we want? And when you've seen some of the above happen, have you stood by the wayside or have you actually taken action? We know to be the change, we have to be the change. So these are prunes. Yes, prunes. Usually they're on sale in the grocery store because very few people eat them anymore. But at Workplace Safety North, we had a gentleman who worked with us. His name was Brett Webb. And he did a lot of research in resiliency, gratitude, leadership. And this is an exercise that he came up with to help us become more resilient. And we know that if we can help our youth in building the resiliency, we can help them in lowering their anxiety and actually increasing their happiness and improving their mental health. So it's quite an easy exercise. And the reason that prunes was chosen is because Brett spent a lot of time figuring out acronyms. So that would be something that we could easily remember. So the P in prunes is to think positive thoughts, because positive thoughts steer us in the right direction. Get rid of that negative voice in your head. Interestingly enough, for every negative thought we have in our mind, we have to replace it with 3 positive thoughts. So if you have one negative thought, I'm never going to make it through COVID-19, you have to think of 3 positive things to get rid of that one negative thing. Oh, yes, but I get to work at home and I get to work in pajamas and I get to spend more time with my dog and I don't have to have the commute. So there's the 3 positive things to get rid of the one negative COVID. But if I never had the negative COVID thought, I wouldn't have had to keep going in my mind. So it's like that little hamster on the wheel. So R, rejection. Most of us shudder when we hear the word and we steer clear of it. But if we want to practice resilience, we have to practice rejection. Now, I'm not suggesting you rush out and get a Tinder account and swipe left, swipe right. That's rejection at a very high level that most of us are probably not comfortable with from the get-go. But you can try this. When summer comes and you're at a yard sale and somebody says to you, I want $5 for that item. You say to them, nope, I'll give you 4. I say, oh no, I can't sell it to you for 4. And you walk away and you say, I was just rejected. I'm feeling pretty good. The whole world is still standing and I'm pretty proud of myself. And besides, you'll save yourself $5 on a piece of junk that you don't really need at your house. Uncomfortable. This is about looking for situations that make you uncomfortable and putting yourself out there. So start getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. For many people, that's public speaking. That's doing a webinar like I'm doing right now. So if you're uncomfortable with public speaking, I don't suggest that you record a 1-hour webinar. That might be a little too uncomfortable. But you may want to say to one of your colleagues, hey, you know what? At the next staff meeting, I'd like to introduce the next guest speaker. Start small, build big. New, learn something new. What was the last new thing that you learned? Learning new things helps us to create brain paths that are new and they strengthen our resiliency. Energy. You have to watch not only your energy, but your own. You know, those energy vampires that congregate in our workplaces. They drain us of our energy. And when we're drained of energy, we cannot be practicing resiliency, and we're definitely not contributing to our own good, solid mental health. So for the youth in your employment, if you can share this prunes exercise with them, you're giving them a head start. It's easy to remember. You can have some fun with it. It's an actual takeaway for you and the youth in your workplace. Now, when we talk about the energy vampires, how do you get rid of them? How do you get them to stop talking to you? Well, Socrates, really easy way to do it. And when somebody comes to you and they want to suck your energy, ask them these 3 questions. Is it true? And do you know it to be true? Is what you're going to say good or kind? And lastly, is what you have to say going to be helpful? Chances are energy vampires will not be able to answer yes to these questions. They'll have to answer no. And that's how you shut them down. Say, sorry, you didn't pass the Socrates triple filter test. This is easier said than done. It takes practice, but once you start practicing it, the energy vampires will not come around you and you can retain your energy. Here are some resources. I strongly encourage you to go to workplacesafetynorth.ca, and we have a whole section on mental health where we're adding resources as we speak. If you yourself have resources that you would like to share with us, the next slide will give you my email address, and I'd be thrilled to receive them from you. You don't have to do this alone. The world is filled with resources for us. Right now, Workplace Safety North has 2 CMHA certified psychological health and safety advisors. You'll see my colleague, Alicia Millette, who's also a mother of 2 and has a world of experience with young people. And there's myself, Angele Poitras. So if you have questions about today's webinar or you want to explore the topic, please reach out to us. We will help you the best we can. So I thought we'd end in looking at some artwork from the 2020 project. And this young lady who's in grade 9 said, "You see a supervisor pointing and scolding an employee working with stacks of paper. You can see by the changes in the employee that over time being spoken to in such an aggressive manner is demoralizing and causes a deterioration in our employees." You know what? Our youth get mental health. They really do. And I believe they're going to be a catalyst for change because they're brave and they're going to start having the conversations. And as employers, we're going to be setting our youth up for success as soon as we start understanding their mental health. So in closing, what can we do as employers? Well, the number one thing you can do is have this conversation after the webinar. Maybe share it with somebody in your workplace. Have a conversation with the youth. We can understand what the causes are and acknowledge them. We can seek to understand the differences in their lives from ours, which may be contributing to their anxiety. We can listen, truly listen. We can look for solutions. We can stamp out stigma. And we can be the strong and guiding adults that they expect us to be. And remember, be kind to yourselves. If you aren't taking care of yourself, you can't take care of the youth in your workplace. So thank you for joining. Welcome, understanding mental health, setting our youth up for success. I wish you much success in your workplace. Thank you.